Now, the rest of the story.
Well, this is the lower bottom, and the water is definitely draining off, I guess is the way to say it. And I don't have any fertilizer down on any of my hay crop this year. Largely just, it wasn't even so much the river coming up. Oops. It was just timing and logistics for this year. I just really never had a decent chance to come down and do it. So, I mean, floodwater, great. It is the 16th of May. I'd say I'm looking at another month yet. A very real possibility where we might just say forget it and make the valley after the rest of our first cutting this year. I'm not really feeling overly optimistic on, hay production for the year, especially off this down here. Believe it or not, the valley is the best part of the farm down here, though, or at least the bottom is. That river water, people had asked me if it helps with fertility, and around the bank you could actually see, well, for one, you can actually see how deep it was down here, because that is the corn stalks from the other side of the river right there. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of water down here, and I'm not really sure if I can even drive out in much of this right now, because the river itself, it seems like it's really, water's really high right now, but the river is, well, it's only like a foot, maybe 2 feet from the bank. So it's got a ways to go yet. So what I'm really looking for is heat and not a lot of, nasty downpours and rain. I had this place really cleaned up down here. It looked really pretty the last couple years, and Mother Nature took some of it back, at least for the short term. By no means does that mean I'm giving up on this down here. It just needs a chance to drain back off. That is the nature of the animal when you're dealing with bottom ground like this. I mean, people have asked me numerous times, why don't you put corn down here? I mean, corn on bottom ground does great. I don't think I'd be able to sleep at night trying to produce corn down here. I really couldn't. So, oh well, it's at least decent. It's at least peace of mind knowing that I know full well this is a possibility, and we can largely blame the Dakotas and Minnesota for getting all that snow. I think a lot of what we're looking at is the river backing up from snow melt. So some of this water that's running out of here might be from, some snow that melted how many miles away. But it does look pretty down here. If I can actually get as much of this made for first crop, actually go through and maybe spread my dry fertilizer for second crop, and either do 2 cuttings off of this down here for the year, or maybe I'll get lucky and just do shorter cuttings, because normally I go for 45 days, June 1st, July 15th, and then I push it back out until like late September before harvest to give it as much chance to come back as it can between cuttings. Maybe I'm looking at cutting it down to, June 15th, August 1st, and then still like the end of September. But it really depends on how the weather wants to play out, because everybody's saying it's dry across the country. But for the amount of rain that we had here lately, it definitely didn't help my situation down here. But I am relieved to see that it is at least running off. I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to try to get between the upper and the lower bottom, because there's water standing in it, and I had water up to the top of the rims, so really not too eager in getting stuck, are we, buddy? But I don't have any specific goals, obviously, for my hay this year. As many tons as possible, of course, but with the cattle and actually having the amount of numbers I have around, I was already planning on keeping part of first cut anyway for cow feed, and really selling. my production plan or my intentions for the year is going to change by the hour. But as of right now, I'm looking at keeping, you know, a third to a half of my first cutting off this down here, and then selling the rest. Then depending on what second cutting does and what my prospects are for getting a third cut off down here, we'll determine if I'm going to sell all the second cut or maybe try to split it up a little bit, because out of all the hay that I made off of this in previous years, like last year in particular, the second cut Reed Canary was hands down the best material I made off of here last year. And even though I got really good money out of it moving it, I'm almost kind of tempted to sell more of the lesser quality stuff and then keep more of the better quality stuff, even though it's worth more. And, you know, trying to, when I feed my cows, I'm giving them multiple bales at a time, right? So I usually try to mix it up where I'm giving them one bale of first cut, one bale of second, a third bale of waterway grass, and then, you know, randomly put in a fodder bale down for bedding they can sift through and lay on. So this is the valley update. So this is what I'm dealing with. There's water standing everywhere. That single shank ripper with the mow plow on it, that might as well just be put up for sale. It's not benefiting me whatsoever. If anything, it's causing me headaches, because all it does is bubbling up the ground, and it's not really smoothing it out too much, and it's not helping this drain off at all. So I'm really thinking, like, especially up on the hill, I got some water standing where it'd be more beneficial to hit it with a trencher and just put in like a 4-inch drainage ditch, so the water standing on top actually can get out. There's actually fish swimming in my field. I don't know if I can get them here. The problem is they see me coming. You stay on there. Oh, you jerk. If you get wet, you're walking back. That's official, you're walking back. But you see, now they're all camera shy. Because I had a whole school. That is a pretty wicked current. So this water that's draining off, that is coming from the standing section of the field that's got water standing on it. And a big reason I'm down here, once again, it seems like the whole year is kind of pushed back. They are up there. They're swimming around up there. I wanted to see if there's any stumps or sticks or anything I need to pick up out of the field, which there are. Granted, not nearly as many as I was worried there was going to be. So that's a big relief. But I at least know where they are. So after we get a chance here, I'm going to bring the skid steer down and scoop them up and go that route. But I think hay season might get kind of interesting this year. Not really. I'm not really planning on taking too many chances much with anything right now. Try to get as much as I can made, dry, and hauled out, and we'll see what we can reclaim from second and third cut. But until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Take care, take it easy, keep in touch. I'll talk to you guys later. Well, for me saying how high the river was, well, obviously it was over everything. This is probably the highest. Well, let me say it like this. The last time it flooded was 3 years ago. Not quite, it'll be 3 years in September. We had that late season flood where that whole year, even for me, trying to get everything established and going, that was the first year that I believe I took this place back over and was really starting to clean it up. So I'm glad to see that it's at least getting down away from the bank. Overall, I think the general opinion is that the country is still fairly dry, and they did say that the river actually dropped back down a lot quicker than what they were expecting. But just coming down here to the bottom of the lower end of the bottom, found another tree I got to push back. No prospects of much of a great first cutting, to be honest. The weeds really should have been sprayed off, but there's no way to even get down here to take care of them. And for us, like you said, we're late planting and everything. I don't feel bad about it, but down here, you know, especially in the low spots, about the middle third of this lower section, the grass has been bit. Or it was just, I think it was coming up really good, you know, growing. And we had a bunch of those 30-degree nights. And I think it really stunted the grass. I mean, it's grown a lot in the last, week, days. But it's gonna have to dry out a lot more. I mean, you can see it's not even dirt. I thought that was dirt. It's dead grass. So a product of the grass was starting to come up. It flooded. It drowned out everything that was coming up. And now we're dealing with, you know, the new growth, which reed canary is reed canary. I get it. Waterway grass, or if it even really qualifies as that, but it's really not out of the realm of possibility where I just make first cut, you know, is the best quality that I feel I can get it made, and I keep first cut off the valley and store it away to feed my cows, you know, and I got alfalfa fields too and everything to mix in with it. But I'm kind of leaning more towards the way it's looking as getting first crop made as timely as I can, you know, not trying to hurt ourselves trying to get it made, but then come down after first crop and basically pour the coals to it as long as the weather allows. Actually broadcasting some dry fertilizer after first cut, spraying it with the radiate, and then I think the goal is actually going to be to try to get as best a quality of a second cutting off this as I can, and then we'll see what third cut does. So I don't know, definition of a farmer, literally just making it up as I go, because the plans constantly have to change, because they're not calling for any more rain in the short term. That should allow us to get corn in. I planted corn last year with our setup, or the planter setup like it was with the 46 and everything, 9 days, and that was with 2 or 3 rainy days. We got rained out. I think 4 or 5 days I really could get all of our corn in. I mean, we just really need the dry weather to stay here at least long enough to get the seeds in the ground. Well, that's it for the hay update, the grass update down here as far as that goes. I mean, trying to be a little bit more optimistic as to what I had to come down here to look at, but I mean, it'll make something. Me coming down here and hitting this with the brush mower and just grinding it up, putting it back in, that's not an option, because the problem is when you grind it up, you just get a layer of thatch, and then that just contaminates your second cut. So my cows may be eating really good, they may be eating kind of so-so, but I'm not going to let them eat nothing but junk. I don't want to say junk, low quality, but I gotta say though, they're doing a good job of what they're doing. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I gotta get back to it. And here's about the best example I could give you for what floodwater does as far as fertility and putting nutrients back in the ground. This is, well, the hillside's actually like this. This is, you know, that steep hillside. This is where the water got up to. Can you see how nice and dark it is that way and how light it is going that way? So I guess, I mean, clear back in school they used to talk about ancient or older civilizations from how many hundreds of years ago that used to use floodwater as a form of gaining nutrients in your soil. Well, Yeah, I can see where they're coming from.